round instead of winning and actually turned that into a perfect record today as well. Drew last round here and should be locked for top 8 with that draw. So yeah, that's how you do it. You don't go 8-0, you go 7-0-1.
Exciting to see how things turn out here as our players start to shuffling up and are ready here for this round 13. Starting here with Mike Gallardo playing mono red aggro. We saw this before. Sunspine Lynx being a very interesting card. Also the new Tursa from Tarkir. What does this deck want to do, Simon?
Well, it's a very red deck and it wants to do red things. It wants to attack and burn down the opponent. It's playing the mouse package that we've seen so much in Standard. Heartfire Hero and Emberheart Challengers with that Valiant keyword. You're able to trigger it with your Rockface Village, with your Manifold Mouse to give it double strike. It's an insane interaction. And even the 4 copies of Monstrous Rage can also help trigger those Valiant triggers.
How does it do against what Luis Gobern is bringing though? Jeskai Oculus.
Yeah, so that's still hard to know. We see that Gallardo's setup here is main decking 2 copies of Sunspine Lynx. We've seen different numbers of these between the sideboards and the main decks. Mark Gallardo doing the quite interesting thing here of cutting 2 copies of Lightning Strike. I've not seen many other players do this to get room for these extra copies of Sunspine Lynx. So that should be interesting to see. Mark also is a red player who has a draw. He's X1-1, which means that I don't know how that draw occurred. I don't know how that happened, but it does mean that if he wins this, he is in a prime position to draw into top 8.
Okay.
So winning in for Mark. Louis Gobern, on the other hand, is sitting there chilling, is a long-time player. Just want to talk a little bit about Luis. He has a GP top 8 in Madrid from 2016, has a handful of PT that he's played throughout the years, in the past 10 years or so, and last RC in Prague, Luis was playing there too, and he qualified from that RC to Pro Tour in Vegas, and now is looking for that second PT invite. Might already have that in the bag with his 10 wins here, but he's looking to win this round and then win the next one in order to secure a spot in the top 8.
And Simon, I start to think that I am choosing the wrong Portuguese people to feature in my caster prediction draft, because it's the second time that Luis Gobern here is doing great results, and I always choose other Portuguese players. And this time, Martin Yuza actually stole this pick from me, and Luis Gobern doing pretty well for him here in the caster fantasy draft. Love to see this Jeskai Oculus doing well as well. But I was talking with the Portuguese players on Friday, and I was like, who from you do you think will do good? And they said, if it was modern, Gobern for sure, but it's not modern, so it looks like...
That looks like a rhyme as well. Modern for Gobern.
That's true, but not even. All the formats for Gobern.
Any format, doesn't matter. I mean, this deck kind of has a... It smells a little bit like a modern deck. It has those like abilities to pressure very quickly, has a bunch of card draw and can keep the pressure flowing, just like a Rakdos Evoke or Boros Energy deck would in modern. And this deck is built around Prop's Eidetic Memory. A lot of these creatures you see, they come into play and they will discard cards and draw cards. That will trigger the Eidetic Memory, putting more counters on your creatures. You have Glacial Dragon Hunt. That's a removal spell that allows you to draw and discard cards, which also enables this Marauding Mako. And then the best thing you can discard is Abhorrent Oculus, so that you can reanimate it for a single mana with Helping Hand.
Love to see that. This deck definitely has a lot of cards to give, and our players getting ready here to start the action. We see...
Oh, that's a mulligan to 5 from a mono-red player here. Mark Gallagher playing a clean win and in against Louis Gobern here.
That's true. So Mark that does have that draw that puts him ahead in standings. Luis on the other side, 2 mana here. Oh, Profts. This card has been also one card for the weekend, I have to say. It just works so well with Tursa as well.
Exactly, yeah. It's the blue up the beanstalk. That's exactly what it is. It's 2 mana enchantment, replaces itself, and just keeps sitting there on the battlefield, having an immense impact on how the game plays out.
The blue up the beanstalk.
So that is a Manifold Mouse coming down there for Mark. And not that scary of a card by itself. You really want to curve Heartfire Hero into Manifold Mouse. but if there is a Monstrous Rage, it can still hit pretty hard. It does hit as a 1-2 double striker by itself, so it's not the worst in terms of threats. And Luis misses his third land drop.
Wow.
Mark here from a mulligan to 5 is sensing a potential for victory here, has 2 copies of Monstrous Rage in hand. And if Luis only has a single burn spell here, you could actually just go for both rages, but it seems like there is an Emberheart challenger right here.
And Manifold Mouse love these valiant creatures. And
so we see Luis here going
right away
for the Torch the Tower, but Mark can respond to that with this Monstrous Rage and save his creature. So the question is, does Luis have a Spell Pierce? Does he have a second Torch the Tower? Mark asks, what do you have? The question is a second Torch the Tower.
And sacrificing
the Proft. So Luis, actually here, that's pretty brilliant play. Knew that he wanted to sacrifice the Proft to scry one, to dig for that land drop. Deciding to not do that here because he wanted to bait out that Monstrous Rage, so he got to use the second Torch the Tower this turn safely. So I actually love this play here, but unfortunately not paying off with a land drop. Has to play another Proft and still missing that land drop, even after digging 3 cards deeper.
It doesn't feel good to miss that third land drop that is really needed. There's a couple of helping hands in Luis Gobern's hand, but nothing to get from the graveyard yet.
So you might see that Monstrous Rage just come down here and trigger Valiant. Oh, there's a bit of a hesitation here. I wonder if that's about life totals or any sort of other thing. There was certainly a judge interaction there. I can just say, like, we had this talk actually yesterday. This is a bit of transparency for the viewers. Whenever it cuts back to us, I feel like I always look so dumb because I look up at the screen and it looks like this. We have a giant TV screen right in front of us, and whenever it cuts back to us and we're not ready, it's just gonna look like this. It's not very flattering, but you're always so professional. You never look up, you always look at the camera.
I'm ready to look at the camera right at the viewers so they feel intimidated.
Oh, wow.
I'm just kidding, but it's back to the game, so no longer you have to worry, Simon. We see here the board state. What is happening here? Thursa is there?
Yes, so that is the Monstrous Rage targeting Emberheart Challenger. Valiant Trigger hit a Thursa, and you can now play your 4th land and just play out that Thursa for free. Well, not for free, you pay 3 mana for it, but you got you got the card for free and can even discard here if you want to. You can also decline. Decides that his last remaining card in hand is too good to give up on. I think that's a Burst Lightning, and is attacking here for, so that is 6 damage from that one, plus 3, so that's 9 damage. Leaving Luis's life total in half, and there is finally another land.
Okay, is it too late?
To say sorry, I do not know, but Luis draws 2 cards, and this Steamcore Scholar is going to get 2 cards from that Proft Eidetic Memory. This is the great combination of cards. Of course, it is less great when it happens on turn 5.
Yeah, so it will be a 4/4, but we know that Mark does have
the Burst
lot
Lightning in hand. Yeah, if Mark can draw a land, he can just aim that Burst Lightning right at the Steamcore Scholar and attack for 7.
That's a big threat there as well. There's also still the land that can be animated.
It's true. There's a lot of ways for Mark to present problems here for Leaves. There's also the chance to use Rockface Village on that Emberheart Challenger, pushing it up to 4 power so it can offer up the trade with the Steamcore Scholar, as well as potentially drawing Mark another card. Let's see what the draw is here. Is it an untapped land? Is there even a Burst Lightning in hand? Did I look at it wrong? See, there's a bit of a think here. That's always good when you're playing mono red. It's very easy to think that you're just supposed to play fast and lose, but these decks are so much better if you take careful consideration, and this is exactly what Mark is doing here. Announcing the attacks and then playing the Witchstalker Frenzy on the Steamcore Scholar and sending in for 7 damage. Then he can turn the Burst Lightning at the face, and that is lethal.
Mono Red showing how fast it can be here against Luis Gobern that did get stuck on mana for a little bit.
Honestly, if your opponent is going to be stuck on mana, this is the deck you want to be playing.
And this was like a mull for the Mono Red player, right?
Yeah, this is a mull to 5.
Just showing how resilient the deck
Honestly,
is.
we've talked about this like before as well. There was a discussion yesterday about like, do you keep a greedy hand against an opponent who mulligans? And it's just important to remember that mulligans doesn't mean that their hand is slower. It just means that they're trying to mulligan to a fast start. It just means they don't have much follow-up. And so a hand that stumbles and is not very good is always going to perform worse against a hand that is a multi-5 but actually has the good curve out.
Simon, what was, if you remember, the time that you mulliganed the most and still won? So like multi 4 to 3, did it ever happen?
Yes, I've definitely had a mulligan to 3 and 1. That was nice, and it was not playing Tron, that was in standard.
What?
Yes, I don't know how that happened, but I was just playing against Blue-White Control, and I mulliganed to 3, and I won the game. Oh wait, I had it in Vintage Cube, sorry. I'm also 4 in standard and 1 off that one. That was a long time ago. In Vintage Cube, I'm multi 3 with my mono white creature deck, and ended up winning that game. That was very cool. A huge student of Warfare. And then of course, whenever I was playing Tron, also a ton of mulligans. Probably a couple mulligans to 3 of that one as well. Don't know if that resulted in game wins or not. Because if you're playing Tron, you don't really think about your hand, starting hand size. It's a privilege if you get to start with 6 or more cards.
Oh, that's right. I mean, love to see Simon, love to hear these stories. I mean, mulligan is actually a very important decision, and I often regret the moves that I didn't take more than the moves that I did take, if that makes sense.
That's often how it works, yeah.
So we're taking a look here at our players list, what might enter sideboard here for Mark Gallardo playing this mono red, now on the draw against Luis Gobern, Jeskai Oculus.
Yes, so the important cards here from Mark is going to be the 2 copies of Ghost Vacuum. These are going to shut off the helping hands and make some of the other graveyard synergies slightly worse. On top of that, you also have 2 copies of Lithomantic Barrage, which you could bring in to deal with the Oculus, but I actually think that's a bit of a trap in this matchup, because there's not that many targets that are blue. There's a bunch of red creatures present in this Jeskai Oculus deck, and the Proft is going to be quite good at pulling creatures out of that 5 damage range. So I think I'd rather prefer to have the Witchstalker Frenzy that's in his sideboard as well. This is a better answer to Oculus in my opinion, because it also can answer other things that they have. And if they have a red creature that is a 3/3 and a blue creature that's a 6/6, you still have targets for your Witchstalker Frenzy.
That's right. Okay, so players getting ready here with now. We see Luis Gobern's sideboard. Sheltered by Ghosts is a card that we saw a lot in that Monument deck that we didn't see as Monument actually. But yes. Sheltered by Ghosts was MVP there. Is it going to be MVP here as well?
Yes. This is exactly the matchup that you want Sheltered by Ghosts from. This is such a hate card for this mono red deck. And because Luis can make big creatures that aren't targetable by Lithomantic Barrage, it's a great deck to put in the Sheltered by Ghost. Combining that with Proft can be quite devastating. You also have maybe a few more removal spells, like there's a Braid. I don't think you're really trying to sideboard that much from the Jeskai side. And you see Luis here looking like he's about to mulligan to 5. Trying to remember that what happened when his opponent mulliganed to 5, but this seems to be a bit of a non-game here for Luis. Can he have as good of a hand as Mark just beat him with on this multi-5?
I mean, never nice to multi-5, but we saw Mark being able to take game 1 after multi-5. Let's see if Gobern can do the same, as you said. Now, these must affect your morale. After game 1, where you couldn't get your third land for so long, didn't have access to white mana as well, into a game 2 where you're already starting to multi-5, how do you pick yourself up back, Simon, and just focus on the game and do not get demoralized?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, it's like, honestly, if you can just switch your perspective a little bit and think of it as a privilege and an advantage if you get to start with 7 cards and have 5 cards as your, like, that's the normal amount of hand. Like, you don't necessarily need to consider yourself getting unlucky. You can just focus on the times that your draw is like fine, or you're actually getting lucky. That if you focus on those things instead, it's easier to keep your mind on the goal. Of course, you do still need to, nothing is lost yet. You can easily win on a multi-5. The question is just, how do you do it? Which cards do you put on bottom? It's a tough decision when you're mulliganing to 5 and have to put 2 cards on bottom, and just focusing on getting that decision right can be extremely important.
That's right, and looks like that Torture Tower already taking care of the Lizard Iron Claw. It's gone now.
So this is 2 pain lands for Luis. That is a issue with these 3-color decks, is that their mana bases are sometimes just only pain lands, and that can be extremely painful in a matchup like this. Here's 2 more 1-drops. So does Luis have a way to catch back up from this? No play on that 2 mana here, so just has to play Steamcore Scholar. It's not that good of a blocker into this board here.
And there's Oculus on graveyard.
There's Oculus. Is there helping hand? In hand, there is indeed. Yeah. Okay, so this is the way that Luis can potentially claw back from this situation here, because he's going to have an Oculus in play next turn, facing down this board of 1/1 creatures. I think there's a Screaming Nemesis potentially coming down here, but
Screaming Nemesis.
But the Nemesis is not that good. Like, doesn't add that much damage, because if you play the Screaming Nemesis, you can no longer attack with your Hyatt Claw. Whereas if you attack right now, you might even also be able to attack with the Heartfire Hero and essentially bluff a piece of interaction.
Yeah, let's see what Mark decides to do here.
You can just burst lightning as well on this Steamcore Scholar. There's a lot of ways to play this. I think I kind of like just attacking with the 2 1-drops here. And if Luis blocks, you can burst lightning the Steamcore Scholar and play a second Heartfire Hero. Or you can just play the Screaming Nemesis and attack for 3 now. The advantage of attacking with just the 1-drops here is that if Luis doesn't block, it's the same amount of damage, and then you can play the Nemesis post-combat. I just realized the reason why you wouldn't do that. I just said it. It's the same amount of damage. You're getting in 3 damage no matter what you do. Might as well play the Screaming Nemesis.
Yeah, so looks like here we are getting Profts, drawing a card that's going to put a counter on something. Painland there.
So that's the helping hand. And I wonder if he's getting the counter onto the Oculus to protect it from these 5 damage removal spells that are in Mark's deck. Here we see the first pain land, but no, rather putting it on the Scholar, doing a bit more pressure and actually having a blocker. At this point, Luis is not in a position where he can play around the worst case scenarios. He has to hope that things are going better for him. And there's a Sheltered by the Ghost, which would be an awesome draw, but he has to manifest that or chuck it into the graveyard to help with Delirium.
Not the right way that he was manifesting it, but yeah, it's a 2/2. And Oculus just gets you so much value. All those 2/2s starting to appear.
So now, Mark has the Burst Lightning, and is that a Manifold Mouse? It is indeed. So you can start bumping up this Heartfire Hero to attack more, but this is not that easy for Mark to attack through. Of course, he still has the 2 copies of Screaming Nemesis, and I'm just going to rely on those. I honestly think just playing a Screaming Nemesis here and attacking with both of them is a pretty good play. Luis can point that Steamcore Scholar, blocking one of them, and then essentially also losing his Manifest token from that play. That's probably the best thing that Luis can do in that position if there is a second Screaming Nemesis coming. But it's also possible that Mark just wants to level up this Heartfire here. It's not that good of a position for Mark, I don't think, just because of how poor it is if you let your opponent untap with Oculus and they're at 10 or more life.
That's true, and a tough decision here for Mark, which does have a couple of options.
So does just decide to go with the Screaming Nemesis, attacking with both of them here. Let's see if Luis is ready to just trade off, but says, no, I'll just take the damage here. That is a dangerous proposition, but it does mean that he gets to keep his flyer, which is also his pressure, and that might be important here, but I think Luis just has a bunch of lands in hand.
So that's an attack for 8 damage with the flyers.
Yeah, so that could, if you have a way to draw a card next turn, it could represent lethal, but I think his hand is just 3 lands, and that is not the way you wanted this to go. Game 1, just couldn't find a 3rd land, and Game 2, this is leaving you with a lot fewer options. Luis deciding to keep his Steamcore Scholar around instead of trading with the Screaming Nemesis and keeping his life total that tad bit higher, just to go for more pressure and a potential to win the game. But that gambit was not paying off here. Now, surviving these two Screaming Nemesis and the High Claw trigger and the Burst Lightning, it's going to be a tall order, as well as this Hardfire hero. If Mark just goes to play Manifold Mouse and give double strike to the Hardfire hero, and just attacks with everything, that's a lot of problematic attacks coming in. You could even just use this Rockface Village that you just drew to pump up the Hardfire hero. Might even be better to just turn it into a 3-2.
Yeah, not a lot of options here for Gobern that only, as you said, as lands in hand, so it's going to be a tough one.
Of course, Mark doesn't know about the lands and has to think about the potential ways that Luis could answer this. Of course, Luis played very aggressively last turn there, even tapping the Oculus. So it does make Mark play a bit more scared potentially. So you can play the other Hardfire hero, give them one haste. So that's even more damage coming in if you just Alpha Strike and attack with everything. And the Hardfire heroes are going to deal damage no matter what. Either they die or they will just hit directly. There's no way around the damage from these Hardfire heroes. The same thing goes with these Screaming Nemesis. Even if you block them, they will deal you damage. I don't think, even if Luis has a card, there's no way that he could
low here for Mark.
Prevent this damage. And that means Mark is potentially set up to draw into the top 8 of this tournament. I actually have the word that here in round 14, Mark did indeed draw. So we will see Mark Gallagher very likely into the top 8 here with mono red.
Oh wow, I have to say